Howdy everyone, Runt9 here, and welcome to Runt9 Looks at Rift Wizard. Rift Wizard is a new classic roguelike from developer Dylan White, who managed to put out a game that has one of the deepest amounts of run variety in just about any roguelike I've ever seen. The fundamental concept of Rift Wizard is you start off with this available spellbook, essentially, of I think it's around 300 different spells. And not only do the spells exist as is, but they all have various upgrades. Some of them very simple, you know, just more damage, more range, but some of them have abilities that you can tack on that fundamentally change the skill or augment something very powerful onto the skill. An example in the last run that I did was Icicle has a augment you can put on it that it regains charges as you kill frozen enemies, which really helps build you into certain synergies. And that, to me, is what the game is really about. Sure, you've got these 300 spells, you've got a whole bunch of skills that are passive abilities that do things. There's a ton of different enemies and whatnot, but what it really comes down to, and a lot of people in the Steam reviews will say the same thing, is this really feels like a puzzle game. The game is not necessarily throw yourself into the middle of a bunch of enemies and fight your way out. It's throw yourself off to the side of a bunch of enemies and puzzle your way out. And the spellbook and the skills are your tools to put the puzzle pieces together to get out of a sticky situation. And, you know, one of the biggest things that you want from a classic roguelike is the ability to mix and match fast and slow play. In my opinion, in a lot of games, you know, Tales of Maj'El is the main classic roguelike that I sunk a bunch of hours into, and I felt like it did a very good job of, early on, I've got like a couple abilities, I'm just going to run in, spam those, move forward, and then as time goes by, I've got more options, there are more dangerous enemies, I need to figure out how to kite things and use walls to my advantage. This game does that, executes that formula perfectly, and I would say even amps it up to another degree because of how varied the spells are, how varied the play styles are, and from what I can tell, you know, just a little bit that I've been playing it, the large variety of encounters. Essentially, after you clear a room or a realm, you have a few different portals you can go to, and you can check exactly the layout of the next portal. You can see what enemies are in there, where they're located, what buffs, what items exist, and you can get essentially perfect information on what's about to happen. And so if you die, you probably chose to lose on that realm. And I very much enjoy that because it really makes you feel like when you lose, it is purely skill. It is purely your build and the way that you played your build that failed you, not the game was horrendously unfair. And in games like this, that is very important to me. A lot of games in this genre tend to build difficulty by just simply cranking up enemy HP and damage and saying deal with it. And this game, from what I can tell, certainly doesn't shy away from throwing some high HP, high damage enemies at you. But it also, again, gives you so many tools to deal with them. And the limited resources at your disposal really changes the way that I approached the game after the first couple of runs. Once I made it past the first couple of realms, I started running into some serious mana problems. And so essentially the way it works is each spell that you pick up from this massive spell list has a set number of charges. Every time you use that spell, charges tick down, and the only way to replenish charges is by using a mana potion. You can see if a new realm is going to include a mana potion on the floor, so you can kind of plan around that to some extent, but really you have to figure out when is the right time to recharge everything? Mana potions and health potions both refill everything to full, but that also brings about the, you know, decision tree of, I still have a couple of these lesser spells left, or these spells without the synergies to really make them pop. Do I want to finish using up their charges before I pop my mana potion? Will I die if I do that? Will I take a bunch of damage? In addition, the limited resources of skill points makes it very difficult for me. You know, a lot of analysis paralysis is something I have issues with. Makes it very difficult for me to figure out, do I grab a new skill to potentially get around, you know, enemies are resistant to the core type of damage I'm dealing? Let me pick up a spell to help around that. Pick up a utility spell. Do I upgrade my existing spells? Do I save up a little bit for a really powerful passive bonus that's going to synergize really well with my build? And, you know, most importantly, the build diversity in this game is fantastic. While, yes, a lot of it does boil down to, you know, I'm going to press a couple of keys, click on enemies, and just kill as much as I can as quickly as possible, the way that you get there still feels very different from run to run. Now, granted, I've only done a handful of runs. The best run I've done made it to realm 13. I believe realm 20 or 24 is the, you know, when you win. So I barely made it past the halfway point. I still have a lot to discover. I haven't run into bosses per se. I think I've run into a couple elite enemies, and you certainly feel it. Like, enemies, again, you can see everything that they have the capabilities of doing, their range, their HP, their resistances. But even then, sometimes it's easy to get lost in the sauce. There's a lot of information that the game throws at you. And I think that would probably be my primary criticism thus far. The tutorial is a simple, you know, one screen how to play that really doesn't tell you a whole lot. Now, that does open up the fact that it's fun to experiment, but what it also means is you do have to figure out a lot of things by trial by fire. And I'm okay with that to some extent. I think this game could give you a little bit more of a direction early on. You know, even if some of the spells were meta progression that you had to unlock, I like the fact that essentially everything is available to you at the beginning. It's completely classless. Every run can do anything you want it to. But I think, at least early on for new players, a little bit more direction would have made those first couple runs a little less painful. But overall, I feel like the game is fairly fast. It's very puzzly, has a ton of run diversity, and I very much expect to be playing a whole heck of a lot more of this game. Make sure you go check it out on Steam. Let me see what the price is right now. It looks like it's sitting on sale, $11.24 US. And once again, it came out just a couple days ago. My good friend Luffy told me about it, and I was a little skeptical at first. Graphics looked a little too basic for me, but honestly, you don't even notice once you get in there and start throwing some crazy stuff out. So I'm having a good time with this game. I expect to play more, probably see some of it here on YouTube and on stream. So if you want to see more of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video to feed it into the algorithm, and comment down below if you've got something to say. And make sure you come check me out over on twitch.tv/Runt9plays for more cool games like this. But until next time, I'm Runt9, and I'll see you later.